All right, now you can hear me. All right. We have some technical difficulty going on today with YouTube, well beyond our control. So that's why I've got to be double mic'd here. All right, again, welcome to the first meeting in May of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We're glad to be here at Wakanda Club with those of you here in person and those of you out there watching our live stream, which actually is not happening now because YouTube has a hiccup, but you will be able to watch us anytime in the future on our YouTube channel. And thanks to Invictus Media for taking care of us today, doing all this troubleshooting and making sure that we are recorded for all of history to watch. We may be sanitizing this microphone between speakers. We'll see how you all act. We do ask that you keep your masks on when not eating, drinking, or speaking from a microphone. And now we're going to go right into the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. So if you would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, now do your thing. Wave at your fellow Rotarians. Wave at a camera so people out on YouTube can see us. I always get a little nervous doing the Pledge of Allegiance in the microphone. Am I really going to remember all the words? Am I going to get stuck? And if you're out there in the crowd and you do, you just kind of stop and then, oh yeah, I listen and catch up. But so far I'm 100%. It's nice to have over 45 Rotarians here with us today in person. For those of you who do want to attend and you ask, how can I do that? Well, it's very simple. You just need to RSVP by Tuesday at noon. That's when both hands are pointing straight up on the clock. And if you don't know what RSVP means, that means you need to sign up in advance and let us know. So that way we can get enough seats to make sure everyone is safely distanced and make sure we have enough food. And the same thing goes for our prospective members. The Rotary member who's bringing you also needs to RSVP for you as well. I know we're not used to doing all of that, but these are not usual times, so please bear with us. A huge thanks to the Community Service Committee, led by Kathy Cody, and our volunteers who helped last Friday at the Des Moines Public Library's first ever Dia del Niño celebration. It was a beautiful day, and they had over 500 people in attendance. We have some photos of the Rotarian volunteers in our Tuesday e-bulletin, and I'm told they were flashing up on the screen before the meeting. Thanks to Kathy and all those who volunteered their time there. We will not be meeting at Wakanda on June 3rd due to the Principal Golf Classic that is held here. Instead, on June 3rd, we're going to meet at Birdland Park at the Ding Darling Shelter from 4:30 to 6 for a picnic. It's time for fellowship with your Rotary friends, and you can bring your family. And if you want to bring a prospective member, do that as well. We are exercising caution, and we're not going to be serving any food, so feel free to bring your own. And if you'd like a beverage, please bring that as well. It can be an adult beverage. Only canned beer is permitted. So if you'd like some of that, please bring your own. It will go on rain or shine, as there is a shelter that is enclosed and has restroom facilities as well. We'll have cornhole games, maybe mini pickleball, and full contact croquet. And now, before I introduce our speaker, I want to remind you of the Rotary four-way test. She's going to be talking about working in a political environment. You may have liked the administration there was there at that time. Maybe you didn't. But to be honest with you, we really don't care about your opinion. Most people care less about your opinion than they want to hear me speak up here, and I've set the bar really, really low. And also, we've equipped the microphone today that you'll be asking your questions from with a Bluetooth device. It's hooked to the rotary taser. So if you get out of line with your question, you may get a zap on that. All right. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our own member, keynote speaker today, Jackie Norris. A few weeks ago, she was introducing one of our speakers up here, and she said, "Doug, it's really nice to sit at the cool table up front. How do I do this more often?" Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can be the keynote speaker, or you can give a moment of inspiration. So if you want to sit up here with all the cool kids at the head table, just sign up for a moment of inspiration and you can do that. You get a whole different set of silverware, plates, different menu to choose from. It's really good. All right, I'll shut up. Please, someone said. Jackie Norris has been an educator as a high school teacher. She's been a nonprofit leader, former CEO of Goodwill and executive director of Points of Light, a government aide, as White House Chief of Staff for Michelle Obama, and has worked in the U.S. Congress and Department of Housing and Urban Development, and political strategist for people like Al Gore and Barack Obama. Strategist? Did you help invent the internet with Al Gore? No? Okay. She's too humble. All right. All right. With that, I will shut up and turn it over to Jackie. Thank you.
Now I think I have to take this also. How's everybody doing today? Good? So I have the timer in front of me. Thanks. I'm going to put this here. And while I'm getting myself organized, if you are brave enough, is there something you want me to talk about? Is there some question that you want to make sure I answer? If you have it, just shout it out while I'm getting myself organized. Well, this is about life in the White House at the end. Other questions people want to make sure I talk about? Do I miss it? No? But I will be more serious. Okay, good. What else? It's a great one. Okay. Thank you for indulging me. I'm almost there. How's it going? How am I doing over there? Everything good? On? Set? Okay. All right. So I'm Jackie Norris. Really happy to be here. As I was thinking about this, I had, Kyle and I had talked about this, and we were going to talk about White House transitions. And I think I was supposed to present in February, and then 2 of my kids got COVID. So that went out the door. I think Jay Byers came in my place. And while I'll talk about the transition, it's now May. So I thought I'd talk about my life in the White House, but then I realized I've had 2 lives because I've worked for Al Gore in the White House, and I've worked for Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. So I'm going to cover that a little bit. This is meant to be a very fun presentation. It's a little bit silly, and but I am happy to get into really somber stuff and public policy and all of the other stuff. But One of the things that you probably observe is people in Washington, D.C., man, they have a really strong sense of themselves. They're very transactional. It's a lot of who's who and what title you have and where you park. And so I thought I'd actually warm up by telling you the differences between my job when I was in my 20s and my 30s, so the differences between the two jobs. So Kitty, first slide. Okay, so first life was when I worked for Al Gore. I was the scheduler and events coordinator. It was 1995 to 1997. For those of you that are familiar with how the White House is set up, and this really matters to people where you work, where your office is, it's such a big deal in Washington. You either work in the old executive office building or you work in the White House. So, I was a little younger. I worked in the old executive office building. If I had any perks, and there were tons, I got to do a lot of international travel, and I got to email with Al Gore. My job as a scheduler and events coordinator was coordinating all of the entities that are responsible for helping Vice President Gore execute his agenda. Everything from speech writing, Secret Service, public policy development, White House communications, the medical doctors, you name it. Everybody that was involved in getting things done for Al Gore. And a lot of travel, because I did the scheduling, I had to know the places that we were going. So I got to go to cool places like Africa and Portugal and France and see all those wonderful places. Food, again, because where you eat really matters. I got fast food at the cafeteria. I did have to pay for it. Parking was far, far away. And my biggest accomplishment when I worked for Al Gore was organizing a successful trip for Al Gore to Africa. It was specifically to South Africa, but we also went to, look at me, it's like Botswana. We went to Botswana to engage in diplomatic relations. And that was a big accomplishment for me because it was bilateral negotiations. And so he met with Thabo Mbeki, who at the time was in essence, the equivalent of a vice president. And so navigating that in partnership with the State Department and diplomacy, I had never done that before. Look, I was in my 20s, and so I learned a lot. And I'll go back and answer more questions on this stuff, but I wanted to give you a contrast. So fast forward to the next life. First Lady Michelle Obama. I was her chief of staff. I got the dates wrong, I realize. It's 2007 to 2009 is the total time that I worked with Mrs. Obama. In the White House itself was 2008 and 2009. Office location. I was in the East Wing. Super cool. Perks. I got so many gifts, and I couldn't accept any of them because you have really strong ethics rules, as you should. So we got a lot of fun gifts, but I couldn't accept them. Tons of event invites. I can't tell you how many events I went to where I actually had to eat the meal and then pay for it because if the meal was more than a certain amount of money, I couldn't accept it. So that was always fun. I feel like I lost money in the game. Look, there were other perks. There's a floral department in the White House, so I got flowers every week, fresh flowers. We were really into healthy eating, so I always had a weekly bowl of apples so I could always eat healthy. And there were so many celebrities. One of my funnest memories, actually, for those of you that are West Wing aficionados, and they tend to maybe be more comfortable with a Democratic administration. So when Barack Obama was president, the West Wing cast came to the White House, and I got to meet like Dule Hill and all these people. But one of my funnest memory was, who's the guy, Toby? Do you know Toby, who is I think he was the communications strategist. I had to speak to a group, and he was in the group. And he asked a question of me, and I started by saying, I have to tell you, everything I learned about working in the White House was actually from watching West Wing. So I got a good laugh from him. But lots of celebrities, they come through and they want to see everything and meet the First Lady and the President. The food, the White House mess is the cool kids' place to eat, much like this table here. And the food's amazing. The chef is top notch. Even the butter pats have the seal, the presidential seal on it. It is high class. Parking, I get to park inside the gates. And biggest accomplishment, uh, planting a garden. This was not my idea. This was Michelle Obama's idea. She just wanted to plant a garden, but we were able to take such a simple concept and move it into something so much bigger, which was to have a conversation about healthy eating and physical activity. Highlighted the issue of food deserts, especially in urban communities all across the country. So it's amazing to me the symbolism of just one little thing like a garden. And I think I have a picture or two. This was actually when we planted the garden. And there's two funny stories about this. The first one is that the plants, some of them were heirlooms that actually came, they were heirloom tomato plants that came from Monticello, from Thomas Jefferson's garden. And I'll tell you, that's a lot of pressure. That's me over there. And I am stressing out because I did not want to do anything wrong with this amazing tomato plant that had come with such a sense of history. The other thing that was really neat, and Mrs. Obama was very passionate about this, is that we always included kids from surrounding communities. And it was especially important. This school that's represented here happened to be a group of young boys and girls that had never planted a garden before. They didn't have access to dirt and seeds and space. And so it was fun to have them come and plant, and then they got to come back all through the process and then eat some of the abundance from the garden. The second photo, I think, is just giving you a sense of what it looked like. And we also had, honey and bees and all of that kind of stuff as well. Next slide. Okay, this is more of just a social, like a fashion commentary. I don't know what I was wearing in my 20s, but these were power suits. I think everybody seems to wear them. They have a lot of shoulder pads. So that was me in my 20s. And then in my 30s, so that was when I worked for Al Gore. And then in my 30s, I think, Kitty, I am hopefully looking a little bit more sophisticated. Is there another slide? Oh, that's okay. Okay, great. And this is myself along with Michelle Obama and Melody Barnes, and I am trying to up my game a little bit, my fashion game. Okay, next slide. So I'll focus a little bit on what do I do as a chief of staff. At the end of the day, your job is to make sure that your boss, and in this case I had two, but primarily it was Mrs. Obama, that she is represented well, that she has as little stress as possible, and that I am always looking out for her best interest. I'll tell you, the day I started, which was literally the day after the election, it was actually 4 days after the election, it's just a barrage of information and noise, and it doesn't stop, ever. But typical day, you're up early. I mean, usually I was up at about 5 in the morning, read the news, make sure you know what's going on, check all of your email just to figure out what happened between, basically 11 o'clock and 5 in the morning, and then just get prepared, get mentally prepared for the day. 7:30 a.m. in the White House, in person, senior staff meeting. Look, those were fascinating. I wish I would have taken notes. I mean, notes not to write a book, but just paid attention, because in those first few months, the gravity of what we were dealing with, I mean, we had Tim Geithner in there, who was the Secretary of the Treasury. There were real, significant, serious issues happening. But that was the moment to all come together and say, what's hot? What do we have to focus on? Where are the crisis points? Throughout the day, it's literally just meetings. A lot of times I would go out and speak at events on behalf of Mrs. Obama and represent her. In the beginning, as she was transitioning into the White House, as she was transitioning her family into the White House, she was not working full-time. Not to say that she wasn't doing things, but she had other things that she had to focus on as well. And so there was a lot of that because the demand was so pent up. And this happens during any transition, whether it's Democrat or Republican. People just want to get in there. They want to gain access. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. other things during the day, general planning with the team, the next 2 weeks. You can't go anywhere without a plan. I mean, if you just put that in your mind, you can't even walk across the street to a church without a plan. So everything has to have a plan because it's always, whether it's a security issue, it's a protocol issue, it's a press issue, there's just always something. Everything you do and say, you're making a statement. And then before I go home, drop by social functions, respond to every email, repeat. The respond to every email, that's probably my downfall, but it's something I felt really strongly about, that if somebody takes the time to email, you should respond to them. When you're getting like hundreds of email a day, I don't know. But I did it because I felt like it was a representation. I am representing Michelle Obama, and I felt really strongly about that. And then you go home and then you do it again the next day. Things that are always on my mind, security was always on my mind. Not so much my personal security, but when you're working for the person that is closest to the president, it's just ever present. It's also ever present in your office. The first day on the job on January, 20th or 21st, intense security briefing. I knew exactly where the thing was that you put over your head and your body that could let you survive and breathe. I've had Secret Service agents come in and evacuate me out of my office. We had somebody who jumped the fence and basically got as far as right below my window because we were right by the parking, the drive. So security is just always present, and it does impact everything you do. It takes longer, and these agents, I'll tell you, top notch. They want you to be successful, and if you treat them with respect, and you tell them what you're trying to accomplish, they will work really hard to help you accomplish it. Second thing, always on my mind, public image. Everything you do and say is a reflection of your boss. And in Washington, which is a high-powered town, you just never know who's listening. You never know who's listening. And that's the nature of the media. They're always there. And even when you're on the soccer field, cheering for your kid and somebody is elbowing you and wanting to talk about something, everybody is always listening. And so you're always on. And that was something, that wasn't just me, that was the whole team, the whole staff. It was something that we had to impart a lot. The third thing is, this is what do you really want? You have a lot of friends when you're the chief of staff. And when you're not, all of a sudden, all those friends aren't there. But you really have to dig into motive a lot. And that's, that's anywhere, I'm sure. But I spent a lot of time trying to understand, what do you really want? And I'll tell you one great lesson that I learned from Mrs. Obama. Oftentimes people would say, well, we want you to do a fundraiser, or we want you to come speak to our event. We want you to do this for us. And the best thing that she brought was this idea that everybody works in their own silo. So let's just take any issue. Take military spouses. There are several organizations that support military spouses. It is a critical issue. It's something that is very important to Mrs. Obama. What she would say is, I'm not going to go to each of your groups. I'm going to bring all of you together. We're all going to sit around the same table, and we're going to work together to, whether it's raise money or raise visibility on this topic. She was very good at using the White House as her own bully pulpit to bring people together, to work together and coordinate. And I think that was something that I really appreciated. And look, we were able to get more done because everybody was working together. The last thing that was always on my mind was, when will I see my kids? That was probably the hardest thing for me. I had 3 children that were 4 and under, maybe 4.5 and under, and I went days without seeing my kids. And I learned a lot about how I'm wired. I learned a lot about how other people are wired. But that was on my mind a lot. And as you'll see later, what I figured out is I might not be able to get to see my kids, but my kids can come see me. So we did a lot of that and had the kids visit us at the White House. Okay, next slide. So these are just fun ones, but I'm sure all of you just think my whole life was parties and celebrities, and I really didn't work. So I'm going to prove the point. Because yeah, he had to go to a lot of parties, but these are just fun ones. John and I went to the inaugural, all the inaugural festivities. That was actually the second inauguration. This was just, a fun social party on the White House lawn, and of course, Kerry Washington, because, there was a celebrity spotting. Next slide, Kitty. Easter egg roll. This is the hottest ticket in Washington, D.C. You take an Easter egg and you put it on a spoon and you race, and it's all the rage. And so every year, because part of my job, right? So overseeing the first lady oversees the residents, oversees all the social events, the social office, all the parties, all the planning. We would get barraged with people who just wanted to, get tickets to go to the Easter egg roll. So those are some photos from the Easter egg roll. Usually there's lots of tears, lots of temper tantrums, lots of kids totally melting down because they're waiting online, and everybody wants to see the president and the first lady, and they do come to it. Also, let's see, holiday parties. Oh my goodness, more parties than you could ever imagine. So we hosted so many people in the White House for receptions, for Christmas receptions, for Italian American Day. You name it, we had a party. And always we had the Marine Corps and other bands that would play beautiful music and welcome people. One of the things that I think Mrs. Obama and I are most proud of is accessibility. We invited so many people to come see the White House and just walk through it. It's their house, and we made it fun. I might have gone overboard once when I basically invited a whole elementary school to come in one day. That's one of those photos on the left. But all of those teachers in the DC public schools, they'd never been to the White House before. It made no sense. And so we really wanted to open it up to people who don't know people, just to say, come, this is your house, come check it out. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the chef and the staff, if you are a foodie, they do amazing things. But these are two that I would highlight. On the right, that White House, it's all white chocolate. It's a replica of the White House in white chocolate. And Bo is even sitting there in the front, and they had done lighting in the house. And then on the left is one of their Easter confections that is just full of bunnies and all that great stuff. But the food is superb, and one of the things that was really important to us is we brought the abundance of the garden into the foods that we served at the White House. And finally, and then I have one slide of reflections, how I survived. Take your kids on the journey. So the big joke is my kids don't realize how spoiled they were at a very young age. This is them in the bottom. I couldn't find the picture of them sitting on the couch. They're just hanging out in the Oval Office, just hanging out. There's a great picture of them relaxing on the couches in the Oval Office. That's them up top in the Rose Garden when there were roses. Okay, sorry, I didn't say that. And then on the left, that is, I think, Sam on Inauguration Day, and Sam at the bottom just not having a care in the world because he's got ice cream. And I share this because, look, all throughout my life, I couldn't do what I've done if I just didn't bring the kids along. And that's been my saving grace. And I've been blessed to work for employers, including Mrs. Obama. This was totally fine. This was normal. Whenever the president saw kids, he just got incredibly distracted because he just wanted to hang out with the kids for a while. But that was how we managed some essence of work-family balance. Last slide. I'm going to give a couple of general observations, then I'll open it up. Transitions, because I think it's really important. Transitions between parties can be really rough. And there's been a lot of things written about transitions, who flipped the W key off the keyboards, welcoming George W. Bush as an example. The East Wing transition was the most marvelous thing I ever witnessed. Laura Bush transitioned to Michelle Obama, and she wanted nothing but success for the next First Lady. And they handed me the playbook. They welcomed us into the East Wing, they told us everything. And it was so beautiful because I think what the First Lady, Laura Bush, understood, she raised kids in the White House too, was just how hard the job is. And wasn't afraid to have the really hard conversations. The kids talked to each other, so the Obamas and the Bush daughters got a chance to visit and talk about what it's like to live in the White House. Um, so smooth transition on the East Wing. I will also say on the West Wing, sure, there's a lot of discussion about maybe some tension, but the transition between Bush and Obama, while not perfect, the stakes were so high. The economy was, for those of you that remember in terms of the recession and where we were, it was a team. And because one thing a president understands is it's about not failing your country. And so I will say, don't believe everything you read in the news about transitions, because especially at the high level, those presidents really want the best for each other. I will say, I'm going to put a little asterisk next to Trump, and we don't have to go there, but I will say, up until that point, transitions were really smooth and respectful and done with dignity for the most part. Role of the First Lady, hey, there's no job description. You get to decide. And that's an amazing opportunity. It also very quickly, when we got to Washington, D.C., people were telling Michelle Obama what they expected her to do. And if any of you have read anything about Michelle Obama, you actually don't tell her what to do. So there are a lot of conventional norms and expectations that people had of her, but she forged her own path. She was very focused on 3 core issues. Most people think about the work that she did with Let's Move predominantly, and her focus on healthy eating. And the reason why she was so successful at it is she loved it. She loved that. That was personal and of passion to her. But really, there is no job description. Nobody tells you what to do. Your job is don't screw up and be value added. That's really the job. Pets. There's a lot of pets. They don't do it alone. They had dogs. They had trainers. And if you want to talk more about pets, because I want to keep an eye on time, I'm happy to talk to you about Major and Champ and the new cat coming into the Biden White House. Privacy, you have none. You really don't. You have no privacy, even when you're walking on your own front lawn. People can see you. They can see you if you're out on your patio. It is probably the thing that was the hardest for Mrs. Obama to get used to, the fact that you have no privacy. And even amongst your staff, everybody knows who you're meeting with, where you're going. And I think we don't say out loud for any president, any first lady, any vice president, any second gentleman, losing all of your privacy so quickly can be pretty jarring. Observation for when I worked for Al Gore, interns run the White House, no joke. I was shocked at how much power they have to move things forward. And but it's a really fun opportunity for interns to go in and play a big role, because the phones are always ringing, the mail always has to be opened, decisions always have to be made, and at some point you have to give somebody some things to do. And those interns, they run the White House, kind of. And then last thing, stress and pressure. This is, if I had my moment of inspiration, what I would say to all of you is anybody who works in government, regardless of their partisan affiliation, the stress and pressure is intense. It is intense, and it doesn't stop. Your phone is always by your ear. You are working on weekends. You are working nights. You are always worried. You are always thinking about something. There isn't a single day when you actually can just sit down and be like, oh, I nailed it today. You just don't have that because you're continuously moving forward. And so I would just say, in the spirit of have patience and grace, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, the stress and pressure is intense for public servants. And I'm so glad I did it. I don't miss it. I think when my kids are older, I think it was very hard when I had young kids. So I could see myself doing this again maybe in 10 years. When I have less mom guilt and, feel like I'm being pulled in lots of different directions. But at the time, it was pretty amazing. So I'll stop there because I just blew through everything really fast and answer questions. Anything.
Jackie, great job.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank John as well for his service in the federal government and then over in Rome. I teased this a little bit with you so you know maybe where I'm going with this question. But you mentioned East Wing versus West Wing. Mm-hmm. It occurred to me you were chief for the First Lady when Rahm Emanuel was chief. Let's just say he was a little more colorful than you.
Yes.
I'm curious about your relationship with him. More importantly, your relationship and your observations about the then Vice President, not President, Joe Biden. And then, other than Tom Vilsack, who was your favorite cabinet member or two?
Great.
Okay?
That's
How's that?
great. Oh,
right.
Those are good ones. Look, Rahm Emanuel is a strong personality. And I think that Ron Klain, who is the current chief of staff, but at the time was the chief of staff for Vice President Biden, what he and I would say is they're not putting us, like, put us in, coach, right? So they're not using us, meaning they're not using Mrs. Obama, they're not using Vice President Biden enough. And so I think if we had any clashes sometimes with Rahm Emanuel, it was because he was maybe just very focused on the president, and we kept saying, we can help, you got the A-team. Now, over time, we found that out, and we worked through it. I think he potentially also had look, you do the parties, right? You do the parties. And if anybody knows Rahm Emanuel, you could actually see him saying it that way. You be the girls. And anybody who knows me, and in honor of the book that was named, right, Dinosaur, whatever it is, Dinosaur Lady, I don't do well with that, and nor does Mrs. Obama. So I think that concept of, like, you go do the social stuff, that didn't last for very long. The second observation was, Joe Biden. Okay. So some of you know that it was a slam dunk for me to support Joe Biden, like, on the first day that he announced he was running for president. And my reasons were really simple. I wanted somebody who knew how to walk in and do the job on day one. I wanted continuity. I wanted no flash. I wanted somebody who could do the job, and I'll tell, and who had heart and values. And you saw it every day in somebody like Joe Biden. He showed up. He was loyal. He did what the president asked him to do. He spoke his mind, but at the end of the day, he knew his role. And he did a significant body of work, very different than maybe past presidential relationships. Al Gore was the start of more partnership, president, vice president partnerships. And so for me, I mean, it's been so fun. And I know Dr. Biden because of our work. We work together on a lot of things with First Lady Michelle Obama. So it's been really fun to see this evolution happen with the Bidens. Favorite cabinet member, Arnie Duncan. Oh my gosh, I liked his fight. I liked his spunk. You could tell he was a Chicago superintendent because he was feisty. And didn't always make the best decisions, right? But I liked the passion that he brought to the role. So he'd probably be my favorite. Great question.
So how in the world does a 20-something-year-old get to work in the White House? And with the span between the two jobs, how do you stay relevant in the party to get asked back again at a much higher level?
I know. Crazy. I was speaking to a group last night. I didn't plan this. I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to be Michelle Obama's chief of staff and work in the White House at 37 or 38 years old. So I didn't know anybody. My parents are not wealthy. They are not donors. They are not political people. In 1992, when I graduated with a political science degree from the State University of New York, College at Geneseo, go Geneseo, I had interned for Louise Slaughter. She was a member of Congress, and she hired me. I was the front desk assistant, the staff assistant, I made $17,500, and I worked my tail off. And I'm a big believer in hard work. Just put your head down and do the hard work. And after 2.5 years, I think that's the right order. I had heard Al Gore speak, and I said, I want to go work for that guy. I just do. And so I did something that is really crazy. I quit my great federal job with health benefits and retirement plans and watched my parents just freak out. And I volunteered at the White House. They had some volunteer positions. And my strategy was, something's going to open up. Like, I'm really good at what I do. Something's going to open up. I think I was working in the staff secretary's office, so correspondence, and something opened up, the scheduling job. So that's kind of how I found my way in. And then the second time around, so I had, after I worked for Al Gore, then I worked at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Then I realized Washington is highly transactional, and I was never going to meet anybody there and settle down. And I took a risk and moved to Iowa to work for Tom Vilsack. And then worked for Al Gore. So here we go, connection to Iowa, the caucuses, right? Everybody who wants to run for president comes through Iowa. Well, Iowa, here I am. So when Al Gore ran for president, then I was here. Then I took a break, had 3 babies, and taught, right? Great. Everything's wonderful. And then people that were really close to the Obamas reached out. And I had known them through politics. So between John and I, we've run, I think, every presidential campaign or helped lead every presidential campaign since 1988. And so they reached out for advice, and I guess I gave great advice because they asked me to join the team. So I don't know if that helps at all. Yeah, so. I'll say one other thing on that, and then Art has a question. You know, people often ask, what's the success in politics? The success in politics, in my mind, is being brutally honest, because candidates really value that. I'm not tactful, always. I can be brutally honest. I can be too transparent, but I have found that for me in politics, that's actually what candidates want. I think that's, you know, as you think about people and their values and why they've been successful, for me it's just been do the hard work and be brutally honest and see what happens.
Jackie, when you're one-on-one with the First Lady, is it Mrs. Obama and Jackie or Jackie and Michelle?
It's a great question. It's always Mrs. Obama. And because the formality of the office never leaves, and while she doesn't love that, that was the protocol that I put in place, much the same way with the president. It was very hard for them to ever be normal, but what we found some lanes. So for the president, it was basketball and golf. So when they went out and they did basketball and golf, he set some boundaries about what he should be called, how he should be treated. You know, no kid gloves on the basketball court. Don't let me win on the golf game. Mrs. Obama, I think, very distinctly separated friends from staff. And she had 2 or 3 girlfriends, and they would just go be girlfriends. And kind of go back to the way it was, like with when you and I, you know, people go out and have a drink. But at the end of the day, people are always so deferential because that's how you treat the office. It's hard. And I look, the last thing I'll say on that is I think we struggled a lot. I think Mrs. Obama struggled a lot because you saw a lot of people trying to gain influence and access through their kids. It just like feels really weird, but you know, like they're trying to make friends, and you always question everybody's motives. And I think that's a really hard thing when you're integrating yourself in a new city, is trying to figure out, are these people my friends or do they just want access? And navigating through that can be a struggle, I think, for families. Oh, thanks. Okay, so the quick version is I did a 360-degree life change, all about balance. I bought a business. Some of you may know Tom Slater, State Public Policy Group, and I don't know if Denise Essman is here, but in Essman Research. So I'm going to be leading that business and doing a few other fun things that I'll talk about later, including speaking up for what I care about and serving on the Biden team in a interesting way. So that's just a little bit about that. Thank you for letting me make a plug. So, all right. Thanks for having me.
Sorry. I think that's got to be worth a $25 contribution to the foundation, doesn't it? You had to pay for your lunch before. There's no free lunch here either. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing that very interesting story with us. And we are donating the book, Dinosaur Lady, The Daring Discoveries of Mary Anning, the first paleontologist, to the Downtown School Library in your honor. I see you're inscribing some words of wisdom to our young readers there. Thanks to everyone for being with us today, whether here in person or watching our YouTube channel. Upcoming speakers. Next week on the 13th, we have Dr. Terry Wallig of ChildServe. May 20th, Amy Jennings, Greater Des Moines Leadership Institute, which three of your fellow Rotarians in this club are with the greatest class in that leadership group of myself, Skeet Wooten, and Deborah Peckham. May 27th, the International Service Committee, who's working on a special program for us. Thanks for being with us, everyone, today, and being part of your Rotary Club of Des Moines. I have a conflict next week. I will actually be leaving something behind, so I hope you will leave something behind as well in the upcoming week to make the world a little better place to live. And when I return, I will be much more hip than I am now. I'll let you figure that one out. With that, we are adjourned.